In this very moment, something is shifting in the fabric of our world that many choose to ignore. But for those who understand the ancient texts, the signs are becoming impossible to miss. We are living in an era where headlines look less like news and more like verses from a forgotten book. For centuries, certain prophecies were hidden away, deemed too controversial or too frightening for the general public to handle. Some were even suppressed by authorities who feared the awakening they might cause. But as we look at the state of our oceans, the tension between nations, and the unprecedented technological shifts in our daily lives, we have to ask ourselves, is the clock finally reaching its final hour? Today, we are diving deep into the prophecies that were once banned or overlooked, explaining exactly how they are unfolding right before our eyes. We aren't just talking about metaphors here. We are looking at physical, tangible events that align with ancient warnings in ways that defy coincidence. If you have ever felt that something deep within the world is changing, you are not alone. Let's get straight into the occurrences that are shaking the foundations of everything we thought we knew. To truly understand what is happening, we have to start with the environmental shifts that were predicted thousands of years ago. In the book of Revelation and various minor prophetic texts, there is a specific mention of the waters turning bitter and the creatures of the sea facing an unprecedented crisis. For a long time, skeptics dismissed this as poetic language about spiritual decay. But look at our reality today. We are seeing massive oceanic anomalies where the chemical composition of the water is changing so rapidly that entire ecosystems are failing. This isn't just about pollution, it is about a heat increase that scientists admit they cannot fully explain. It is as if the Earth itself is groaning, exactly as the Apostle Paul described in his letters. When we see the great red spot of the ocean or the massive algae blooms that turn rivers the color of wine, we are witnessing a physical manifestation of a warning meant for the generation that would see the end of the age. Moving on to the geopolitical stage, there is a banned or often suppressed prophecy found in the apocryphal works and hinted at in the main scriptures regarding the rise of a cashless society and a global identification system. For decades, this was laughed off as a conspiracy theory. However, with the rapid implementation of digital currencies and biometric tracking, the infrastructure for this prophecy is already functioning. We are seeing the push for a centralized system where no one can buy or sell without being part of a digital grid. The ancient texts warned that a time would come when your ability to participate in society would be tied to a mark or a number. Today, we call it a digital ID or a social credit score. The technology has finally caught up to the prophecy. What was once a spiritual warning is now a technical reality being discussed at global summits. The speed at which we are moving toward this total integration is something that should make every observer take a second look at the source of these ancient warnings. There is also the matter of the Euphrates River. This is one of the most specific prophecies in the Bible, stating that in the latter days, this great river would dry up to prepare the way for the kings of the East. If you look at satellite imagery from just 5 years ago compared to today, the change is breathtaking. The river is receding at a rate that has exposed ancient tunnels, caves, and ruins that haven't been seen for thousands of years. Local residents and archaeologists are finding things that align with the descriptions of bound entities and ancient remnants mentioned in religious texts. This isn't a slow process. It is happening right now. The drying of the Euphrates is causing geopolitical tension over water rights, exactly as a precursor to larger world conflicts. When the scripture says the river dries up to make a path, it is describing a geographical shift that is occurring in our lifetime. Another prophecy that was often kept out of mainstream sermons but is gaining traction now involves the restoration of the earth's fertility in specific regions. The prophet Isaiah spoke of the desert blossoming like a rose. For nearly 2 millennia, the region of the Middle East was recorded by travelers as a barren, dusty wasteland. But in the last 50 years, and especially in the last decade, we have seen an agricultural miracle. The technology of irrigation, combined with unusual weather patterns, has turned parts of the desert into some of the most productive farmland in the world. This restoration is seen by many scholars as a physical signal that the promised restoration of all things is drawing near. The earth is preparing itself for a new era, and the physical transformation of the landscape is a direct fulfillment of a vision that stayed dormant for centuries. Let's talk about the cultural shifts, specifically what is described as the Great Falling Away. The ancient prophecies warned that in the final days, truth would be stumbled in the streets, and that people would call what is good bad and what is bad good. We are living in an information age, where the very concept of objective truth is being dismantled. We see a society that has moved away from traditional values at a rate that is statistically unprecedented in human history. This moral inversion was predicted to happen alongside an increase in knowledge. Daniel the prophet was told that at the time of the end, many would run to and fro, and knowledge would increase. Think about our internet age. We can travel across the world in hours and send information in milliseconds. We have more knowledge than any generation before us, yet we are arguably more confused about our purpose than any people who have ever lived. This paradox of high technology and low morality is a hallmark of the times these prophecies were written for. There is a less discussed prophecy regarding the sun and its behavior. Both the Old and New Testaments mention that the sun would grow more intense, scorched with heat, while the moon would take on a reddish hue more frequently. If you follow solar cycles, you know that our sun is currently entering a phase of extreme volatility. We are seeing solar flares and coronal mass ejections that are larger than anything recorded in modern history. These events aren't just scientific curiosities. They affect our power grids, our weather, and even our collective mood. The heavens are truly declaring something, and the signs in the sun, moon, and stars are exactly what Jesus told his followers to watch for. The frequent blood moons and the darkening of the sun during eclipses are seen by many as celestial markers, divine exclamation points at the end of a long sentence. Beyond the physical signs, we have to look at the psychological state of humanity. The prophecies speak of a time when men's hearts would fail them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. We are seeing a global rise in anxiety and a sense of impending doom that transcends borders. It doesn't matter if you are in New York, London, or Tokyo. There is a collective feeling that the current system is unsustainable. This global unease is not just a result of the news cycle. It is a spiritual frequency that was prophesied to saturate the atmosphere before the reappearance of the Creator. It is as if the entire human race is waiting for a shoe to drop, unaware that the script for this moment was written long ago. We should also consider the prophecy regarding the Third Temple. For centuries, the idea of a temple being rebuilt in Jerusalem seemed like a physical impossibility due to the political and religious complexities of the site. However, today, the organizations dedicated to this project have already prepared the materials, the garments, and even the livestock required for ancient ceremonies. The red heifer, a specific requirement for the purification process mentioned in the Book of Numbers, has been found and transported. This is a massive development that the secular world largely ignores. The stage is being set for a series of events that will involve the entire world and center back on that tiny piece of land in the Middle East. There is a banned prophecy in the sense of being culturally suppressed that involves the return of the days of Noah. Jesus said that as it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. In those days, there was a corruption of the genetic order. Today, with the rise of gene editing and the blending of biological and mechanical parts, we are reaching a point where the definition of humanity is being challenged. We are playing with the building blocks of life in a way that hasn't been seen since that ancient era. The hubris of seeking to live forever through technology or to alter the very image of our creation is exactly what led to the intervention in the ancient world. The fact that we are crossing these lines again is a sign that the boundary between the physical and the supernatural is becoming thin. Another significant sign is the increase in earthquakes in diverse places. If you look at the geological data over the last century, the frequency and intensity of seismic events are on an upward curve. It isn't just that we have better detection methods. The Earth itself is becoming more active. Major rifts are opening in Africa. Parts of the ocean floor are shifting, and volcanoes that have been quiet for centuries are beginning to smoke. These birth pangs, as they are called in the scriptures, are intended to increase in frequency and intensity as the final event approaches. Just like a woman in labor, the world is experiencing spasms that signal a new beginning is right around the corner. We also have to look at the phenomenon of the rumors of wars. In the past, wars were localized events. You might not know a war was happening on the other side of the world for months. But now, because of our interconnectedness, we are constantly bombarded with the rumor of conflict. We see the buildup of troops in real time. We watch the rhetoric escalate on social media. The tension between global powers like the East and the West is reaching a fever pitch. The Bible speaks of a specific coalition of nations that would form against the land of Israel. Looking at current alliances and treaties, that exact coalition is taking shape right now. Nations that were historically enemies are now joining forces in a way that perfectly aligns with the prophecy of Ezekiel. The rise of deception is perhaps the most dangerous sign. The ancient warnings say that if it were possible, even the very elect would be deceived. In our world, we are entering the era of deepfakes and artificial intelligence where you can no longer trust your eyes or your ears. We can create realities that do not exist and voices that have never spoken. This technological layer of deception is the perfect environment for a charismatic leader to emerge and lead the world astray. The prophecies warned of a man of lawlessness who would use signs and lying wonders to gain global power. With the current state of technology, we can see exactly how those lying wonders could be projected into every home on the planet simultaneously. There is also the prophecy of the gospel being preached in all the world as a witness to all nations before the end comes. For most of history, this seemed like a task that would take another 10,000 years. But with the advent of satellite internet and translation software, even the most remote tribes in the Amazon or the mountains of Asia have access to the message. We are effectively at the finish line of this commission. To the observer, this is a massive milestone. When every tribe and tongue has had the opportunity to hear, the condition for the end of the age is met. This isn't a future goal. It is a current reality. Consider the prophecy of the falling stars and the heavens being shaken. While some interpret this as meteors, others see it as a shift in the celestial powers. We are discovering things about space that challenge our grasp of reality. Great voids, mysterious signals, and the realization that our solar system is moving through a region of the galaxy that is more energetic than where we were before. The very environment of space is changing, and as it does, the Earth's magnetic field is weakening. This allows more cosmic radiation to hit the surface, which some believe is tied to the physical changes described in ancient visions. The heavens are indeed being shaken, and we are just beginning to feel the effects on the ground. The ancient texts also spoke about a time when children would be rebellious, and people would be lovers of themselves rather than lovers of the Creator. We see a generation that has been raised in an era of unprecedented self-focus. The very structure of our technology is built around the self, the profile, and the personal brand. This isn't just a social change, it is a fulfillment of a specific spiritual condition. When a society loses its connection to the divine and turns its worship inward, the resulting chaos is exactly what was described as a precursor to the intervention. We are seeing a breakdown of the family unit and a disregard for the wisdom of the elders, which are the foundational pillars of a stable civilization. One of the prophecies that was historically banned or labeled as too radical is the idea of the great world religions merging into a single system. Today we see a massive push for religious pluralism and the blending of various faiths into a global ethic. While peace is a noble goal, the prophecy warns that this unification will eventually lead to a system that replaces the true faith with a counterfeit. This global religious movement is already in its early stages, with interfaith centers and global leaders calling for a unified approach to the world's problems. It sounds pragmatic and kind, but the ancient warnings say it is a trap designed to lead humanity away from the narrow path. There is also the matter of the sea and the waves roaring. While this is often interpreted as tsunamis and hurricanes, it also speaks to the turbulence of the nations. The sea is often used as a symbol for the masses of people. We are seeing a world in constant protest, with civil unrest and the shaking of governments being the new normal. People are no longer content with the old structures, and the resulting instability is creating a vacuum of leadership. The roar of the people is getting louder every day, and history shows that when the masses are this restless, a titan usually emerges from the chaos to restore order. We must also look at the prophecy regarding the health of humanity. The ancient texts mentioned famines and pestilences in diverse places. Despite our modern medicine, we have recently seen how a single event can shut down the entire planet in weeks. We are also seeing a decline in the nutritional value of our food, and a rise in chronic conditions that our ancestors didn't face. The world's food supply is more fragile than most people realize, with just a few corporations controlling the majority of the seeds. A single crop failure or a disruption in the supply chain could lead to the predicted famines faster than anyone expects. We are living on the edge of a blade, and we have mistaken our comfort for security. The restoration of the Hebrew language is another banned or overlooked miracle.